You're always excited to talk to me, so that never changes. Well, hello, Lisa.
Yep. Well, hello,
Here
Nate.
we
We
go.
are failing at our
Our
commitment to
seriousness?
not laugh.
No, I think it's good to
Yes.
start this out. This is why we talk about the things that we do, because they do bring a little bit more joy and happiness to to the videos and lightheartedness about improving yourself. But as I was kind of sharing off camera, I had a really good conversation. We have a long form video coming out shortly with a gentleman that has, created his own, what's literally called the success formula. But what I thought was really cool about it is he has a piece in there about resistance. And so I'm going to kind of tease out that long form video, but also I wanted to circle back around that subject with you as well, because I think resistance is something that, when you're younger, tends, at least in our experience, tends to lead more towards high stress, high anxiety. And as you get older, as you and I were kind of just discussing, when you just learn to get rid of resistance, stop resisting resistance, for lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase, it really opens up a lot of interesting opportunities for growth, stronger relationships, higher productivity, less anxiety, less stress, even though you're juggling more. So I wanted to kind of dive in on that because, I think a good portion of our younger lives, and, I would say even a lot of adults, never get to the point where they embrace the resistance. Is that the right phrase? Like where they never try to get rid of it. Like it just is like, I'm always fighting the resistance because I don't want to do something. Right. And so I'm going to put up more barriers. And that to me inhibits a lot of really what life is about. But I'd love to kind of kick it off there and get your thoughts on the overall subject.
Yeah. I don't know that I think it's as much as putting up barriers to resistance as being so rigid in whatever thinking, habits, schedule, whatever you want to call it, that the resistance actually increases versus allowing a mindset shift to be more flexible when it comes to the resistance and understanding how it can work for you, or maybe in this moment in time by not sticking to not sticking isn't the right word, but being so disciplined that you can't allow life to happen actually inhibits your growth more than if you would just be present in a moment, allow whatever it is that's happening to happen and make it a positive, that you actually become more productive as a byproduct of it. And you and I were chatting about this weekend moving my daughters down to college, and for lack of a better term, it was a complete shit show of unplanned unplanned things. And I historically, I would say in my youngerish days, would be so incredibly disciplined. I have to do this, and I have to get this amount of work done, and everything else has to fit around this framework of have tos that I've created. And that actually made me crabbier. It made me miss out on potential opportunities to connect or build relationships. And it increased my stress level exponentially because you can't cookie cutter everything same day after day.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most powerful lessons I think I've learned probably over the last 5 years when it's come to building habits, being consistent, being disciplined, and stopping to or decreasing the pushback that I put when it comes to unplanned or even positive unplanned things that come into my life.
Yeah. I like how you phrase that, of almost like the openness of change. I do think it's a fine line between, I used to have this friend who would always say, I'm just going with the flow. I'm just going with the flow. And obviously for a person like me, I'm like, what is the flow? Like, what does that even mean?
Give me the roadmap.
Yeah, it's like, and she was wonderful, and she kind of took her own pace in life. It was a lot slower, but it was like, hey, I'm just going to kind of go with whatever changed. It felt a lot like drifting. So I think that there is a big difference between just going with the flow
Yes.
and having a plan, but being open to changing, understand understanding that you don't have to be, like you said, as rigid. If something goes sideways, it's probably there to teach you a lesson. I think for me, in hearing you say that, I think there's the openness to be okay with the change. But for me, I really feel like the resistance is more when it comes to like my want or willingness to be uncomfortable, right? I don't want to make this phone call. I don't want to build this business plan. I don't want to have this deep conversation with somebody. I don't want to do, but being open to saying, okay, well, here's an opportunity. I know I need to get this done. Maybe it's not going to go to plan, but I'm going to put my best foot forward and being okay with whatever the outcome or at least what the effort is, knowing that I gave it my all.
Yeah, I love that you said the resistance to being uncomfortable. And I use this with one of my daughters actually this weekend because she's transferring schools. She doesn't know a whole lot of people. And she said, "Oh, I'm getting so nervous because I'm just awkward when I meet new people." And I said, "Yeah, you are, because she is. And most of us are. You put us in any sort of new environment or circumstance, you're going to be a little bit awkward. It's going to feel uncomfortable." And I told her, I said, "You just have to remember that all you need is one or two conversations and then it becomes more comfortable." And we are so resistant to putting ourselves in those situations because our brain automatically magnifies how long that uncomfortable feeling or that hard is going to last. And we forget actually how easy or not easy, but how quickly something becomes familiar just by doing, and not necessarily that you have to know that it's going to work out perfectly, but by just taking that step and putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, by the second or third conversation or experience, you go, "Oh, well, the last times weren't that bad. I bet this time is going to be even better."
Yeah. No, that's really good. And I like that example. When you think about resistance and you think about change, and I want to make sure that we don't steer just into like being comfortable with getting uncomfortable. That is part of it. But really, I think the resistance is like just getting started, like you said, right? Just taking that action. Do you find that you can do certain things to reduce resistance? Have you flipped your mentality as you have gained more experience, as you've gotten older and been in more situations? Like, how has that kind of played out in your own personal?
I think it's been largely experience driven that has resulted in a mindset shift. And for me, resistance primarily comes from wanting to be in control and knowing of certainty of an outcome. So type A perfectionist, like I want to know what I'm doing at all times and to stay because that's where I know what to expect. And through experiences, I've learned that if I just lessen the resistance to whatever is happening, for me, to me, outside of my control, generally there is a positive that comes out on the other side. And I'll give you a super dumb example that happened over the weekend too, because we got up super early Saturday morning, hopped in a U-Haul. It was supposed to be 7 hours. We had car trouble. That turned into a 12.5 hour road trip, unloading the U-Haul till dark, yada, yada, yada. Next morning, get up, start unpacking because I've got a limited time there to help them move in. And I didn't get a workout in outside of lifting heavy boxes and building furniture, Saturday or Sunday. And 5 years ago, as the days went on, I would have become increasingly anxious because the workout is a checkbox that allows me to feel comfortable and confident that I'm still moving forward. Yeah. And it's become something that I've tied my identity to. This is what I do. And when I do this, then I know what to expect out of myself. And what actually happened is I went for a run on Monday morning, and it was the first pain-free run since I was injured several months ago, training for a half marathon. And I said, it's a super dumb example, but I got done and I was like, oh my gosh, my body rested for 2 days. And look at what happened. And I'm not saying every time, don't work out, but just be open that sometimes coming outside of that box and not holding yourself to that rigidness, that resistance. And the other thing that happened is we had a fantastic time. We built relationships, we built furniture, we did all these things. And if I had become so consumed by holding what was normal, none of those other things would have occurred. And so I think that's the mindset shift, was being open to allowing and kind of halfway drawing down the window shade to resistance of whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, there was something that reminds me. There was, I can't remember who said this, but I heard it the other day, which I loved. And that is, there's no right answer. There's only trade offs. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we trick
Yeah.
ourselves into saying, my plan is the only plan. I got to check this box to keep moving forward. But dependent upon the relationship, dependent upon, what we have going on, dependent upon what season in life we're in, it isn't like this plan. If I don't do this plan, it's the end of the world. It's, it is, if I don't do this, here's a trade over here. If I do this, this is the trade off that I'm doing. And so I think we all tend to weigh these subconsciously in our mind. Maybe we don't think about them. We're not as self aware of, I don't want to say the ramifications, but just what the impacts of the decision on both sides of the coin. And I think we, for the most part, people try to do the right thing and say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice this so I can get this done over here. For me, listening to you, I have something similar where it's like, even with habitual growth, I have found in the past, like if it's on my list, I will obviously get it done. But if it's not on my list, I kind of stop short. I really don't add anything to the list. And I've been trying to be better about that, to say like, hey, I'm not in this list doesn't define me, right? It helps me moving forward, but there's a lot more things where I could be spending my time. I should be spending my time. And I try to make sure that I'm pulling on those. I don't just see here's 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, and then I'm just going to stop there. But I've also, the thing that has really impacted me is this has come over the last couple of years, and I think we've talked about this before, but I no longer think in moments or decisions. I think, hey, I need to do this over here. I want to do this over here. It's going to take me 3, 4, 5, 6 months to do something. And that in itself has really, allowed me to be much more forgiving with myself. That in itself reduces my resistance, because it's like, you remove well, if you don't get this right, or you're going to look silly right now, like, what are you doing? It's, hey, you've got 6 months to learn this, or 4 months to learn this, or whatever it is, because it's something new. And I found that has really empowered me to take on more, be more productive, try more things, be willing, and saying, well, I didn't get that right the first time, or I'm learning. But it really was that mental shift of like, hey, there's no pressure here. Unless you want there to be pressure, it's, you're learning something, give yourself a little bit more forgiveness, be open to it, take a risk. And that in itself has removed a lot of the resistance mentally for me to try anything. It could be physical, could be spiritual, could be mental. But that in itself has worked really, really well for me.
Yeah, there is it's not a meme, but like a quote or something that I've seen several times on the internet. And it basically said, if you knew that you had 24 or 25 failures to reach your goal, how fast would you get through them? And I love that analogy, because I think when it comes to resisting change, we fight failure because we only see one decision, one moment. But really, if we looked at it as a necessary evil to get through, this is a growth journey that I have to get through, and I'm urgently going through that because I am dedicated to my goals or the life that I want to have, you would choose to lessen the resistance, put yourself in more uncomfortable situations faster, not because you need them to be perfect, but because there is a learning in them. And the faster that you learn and grow, the faster you're ultimately going to get to your goal. And I think that ties into what we're talking about too, and learning how to shift your mindset from, I don't want to do that because of X, Y, and Z reason, and resisting that, and shifting over to, this is something that I need to get through, get over, or learn, because on the other end, I'm picking up pace towards whatever it is that I want to achieve in 6 months, 9 months, a year, or beyond.
Yeah, I like that. And I can't stop thinking about what you had shared earlier, just about like your identity in a particular action, and just kind of rounding this out from my perspective. I think that's really important, right? Whatever you try, whatever you are resisting, when you stop resisting, or at least lower your resistance and just embrace whatever is happening, it becomes very powerful, because you realize like, this one thing doesn't define me. And I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, which leads to the anxiety, which leads to a lot of, quite frankly, crippling self-belief habits that we all have. And instead say, this doesn't define me. I'm trying something new. I'm learning. And it's actually one of the advantageous aspects of being a parent, I feel like, because I look at my kids, 7, 5, and 3, and they have no idea, right? They'll just willingly go ask, and they'll willingly try something, and if they fall, they get up and they laugh and they move on. And like, I love that, because to me as an adult, I think we should embrace that more, where it's like, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to fall on my face. I'm going to laugh it off. I'm going to get up. Yet somehow we feel like these decisions completely define us, which builds up more the resistance that we have to try anything else new.
Yeah. 100%. No, I love that. I think that's actually a great thing to end on, because I think we should, somewhere along the lines, we lose that ability to realize that it's not the end all be all if the outcome isn't 100% perfect. And that's why we build that internal resistance to anything that requires change or uncomfortableness.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, love these topics.
Love it.
Made it through the move for the college weekend, which is exciting. And you learned something about removing resistance. So I think it's a win across the board.
I'm just here to help build content through experience.
All right. Well, good to see you.
All right.
Looking forward to
Thanks,
next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.